Welcome back to the Wyatt Claypool Show. Like I've said many times in the past, and it's not really something I've even said, it's something that a lot of people have said. When you're talking about your opponent constantly in politics, it's probably because you're not winning. And that's what Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party have been doing constantly over the past year. It's not a recent phenomenon over the past month or two, it is what they've been doing over the entire past year. They know the Conservatives are winning. And that's why everything that they do is undergirded with an attempt to try and hurt the Conservatives, whether it's passing policies, whether it's direct attacks on the Conservatives. All it's trying to do is suppress the Conservative vote and bring up their vote. And you could say, well, that's how politics works. Well, yes, that's generally the goal in politics all the time, to sort of boost your popularity and suppress the popularity of your opponents. But these days, it's not like the Liberals are trying to construct really good policies, do really good community outreach, and then attack the Conservatives for not being as good. Like, no, no, no. Everything is like a backhanded attempt to just hurt the Conservatives. The policy doesn't matter. That's why they keep rolling out these bloated boondoggles of policies like pharmacare, universal dental, $10 a day childcare. All this stuff is not actually geared at trying to work and make them popular in the long run. These are short term policies that the Liberals can lean on the fact that within a year of them being passed, you can't really expect that the policy is fully up to speed yet. And then they can fearmonger against the Conservatives cutting these programs, even though right now most people are actually pretty favorable towards the idea of cutting certain programs that are just wasted money when people can't even afford groceries and want inflation brought down. Like, this is the poll I talked about yesterday. It's 44% Conservatives, 25 Liberal, and 16 NDP. And like I highlighted yesterday, the really scary thing about this poll is not just that the Liberals aren't doing that well. 25% isn't their worst result ever, but paired up with the fact that the NDP isn't doing well either, actually puts the Liberals in a worse situation. Like, to put it this way, if the Liberals could choose between having 30% in the polls and the NDP at 15, or that they could be at 29% in the polls, but the NDP could be at 20, they would take the second option because they actually need the NDP to be a little bit more powerful. Because a lot of ridings that the Conservatives win, it's either ones that they're competing against the NDP for or the Liberals. The Liberals being at 30% and the NDP at 15 would just throw a lot of seats towards the Conservatives. So, and this is how arbitrary a lot of Liberal Party powers in Canada. For the Liberals to do well, they need other parties to also be doing well. They need to rely on a vote split occurring so that they can win a lot of these ridings where the Conservatives and NDP do somewhat well, but the Liberals can pull it out with just 40% or 37% of the vote. Like, that's unheard of for a lot of Conservative seats. The vast majority of Conservative seats in the country are like 50, 60, 70% seats. A lot of the Liberal seats are like 42% seats. Same thing kind of with the NDP. They win very marginal seats. There's very few seats that you would describe as just hardcore Liberal safe seats outside of deep downtown Montreal, where Justin Trudeau is in Papineau. But now I just want to do a little bit of a tour through Liberal social media, because I find that their social media is the most revealing about how their party is doing. When, again, constantly every video they upload, every post they make is talking about how bad Pierre Poilievre is, when we're not even in the writ period of an election, demonstrates that the thing that is constantly on Justin Trudeau's mind is Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives beating him. He knows he's going to lose in 2025. So not only is he releasing these Hail Mary attempts to try and boost himself, I think he's trying to secure his legacy right now. As many people are speculating that they might swap in Mark Carney. They're not going to do it. That would look like a retreating move. That would actually probably damage the Liberals with many of its more orange Liberal base that they have. The Liberal base is super progressive. So throwing in Mark Carney would actually kind of be a slap at that part of the party who really likes Justin Trudeau, so they're not going to swap him out. But what Trudeau's trying to do here is that he knows that he'll probably lose in 25, so at least he wants it to make it a righteous loss, that I stood up for all the good things and Poilievre stood up for all the bad things. And this enables Justin Trudeau to go on all the interview shows, write a book and talk about how, the evil far-right Nazi Conservatives beat me, and all I was trying to do was give people dental care, stand up for the LGBTQ, like, IA plus community or whatever. I'm trying to, stand for women's rights. This is what he's trying to do. And you can kind of tell by the recent posts they've been making. And I'm going to go through a few of them. This is them clip of Trudeau speaking in Parliament that the Liberals posted.
Here's a perfect example of where the Conservatives stand. They stood and voted against our dental care for seniors program. As of today, over 2 million seniors have signed up, and in the 22 days since May 1st, close to 100,000 seniors have gotten free dental care. That's in just 22 days on a program that he voted against and that he campaigned against across the country over the past number of months. We will be there to invest in supporting Canadians with a national school food program, with dental care, with more childcare spaces, despite him voting against.
Hear, hear.
Goodness, he's way more breathy than even I am sometimes. He's like, throw out his statements. And I'm just going to say I don't believe him that 100,000 seniors have gotten dental care. What that probably is them screwing with metrics and saying, well, we handed out toothbrushes to 80,000 seniors and then 20,000 of them did end up getting some form of dental care. It's a new program. The Liberals are jamming the most money into it right now. So you're naturally going to have some people thinking like, wow, I just got free dental care. The problem is many of these people already had dental care because usually in your later years, you have decent insurance, you have a built up amount of wealth. And on top of that, the program is basically just trying to underpay dentists. So you might get some desperate dentists who don't have a lot of clients these days willing to take part. But this is not a part of a healthy dental system in a country to have dentists only doing it because they basically have no one else to treat because nobody has money to actually pay for dental care. So these free dental care programs, in the short run, they look sort of good, but in the long run, really, this is going to be a failing program. But Trudeau just wants to run on the idea that everyone's trying to cut your dental care. They're trying to take away your dental care when really his dental care program is not delivering that much more dental care than we used to have. And here is Justin Trudeau. And I think this is very telling that now he's going to these union events because in 2019 and 21, he didn't really campaign that hard for union votes. He assumed that middle-class progressives in Eastern Canada were going to gird up his government so that he could at least get a minority government. Now, when you look at the polling, with unionized workers, the vast majority of them, not maybe the majority, but like the large plurality of them, like 40% are voting for the Conservatives. This is like crazy considering that the Liberals tend to give a lot of big fat contracts to unionized labor firms. And then we also have the NDP, who is a flat-out trade unionist party, and yet the Conservatives are winning them. Trudeau realizes that because he's lost so many middle-class voters who, even if they're progressive, can't bring themselves to vote for them because of how bad the economy is. And so now he's trying to go back to pandering to public sector union workers who themselves don't even like Trudeau. And I think this whole video just comes off very desperate on the part of Justin Trudeau.
Strong unions mean strong paychecks, means strong communities.
You might as well just steal Pure Poilievre's powerful paychecks line because that's what he was trying to go for there.
That's what we can always agree on.
Thank you, for everything you're doing.
I must skip around this because I feel like this music's copyrighted in some way. But I just want to get to this one point where some a woman was saying, I'm a COVID nurse, and he's like, God bless you. And it's so pandering and like silly considering I don't feel like he actually says that to anyone on a normal basis.
I'm a nurse at Blue Water Health in Sarnia, and I was a COVID nurse. I'm a COVID nurse.
God bless you.
Thank you. I appreciate everything that you do.
Goodness, did he just close his eyes? That's so silly. He just closed his eyes. God bless you. It's like, no, I don't feel like Justin Trudeau prays, just throwing it out there. But he needs union workers, so he has to show up to all these events that he's gotten oddly uncomfortable with going to, but he can't survive without having at least 30% of unionized workers on his side. And so he's now coming as this keynote speaker to these organizations like, which one was this? The Surface Employment International Union, which is one that represents a lot of public sector union workers in Canada, considering that she was a nurse, and that is obviously indicating that it's a union with a lot of public sector nurses and whatnot working for them. But I want to get to this other clip because I found it funny of independent MP Kevin Vuong going after the Liberals. I thought this was a good line. Obviously, anyone can just get up and say, wow, the Liberals really suck at their jobs. Justin Trudeau can resign. But I think the way that Kevin Vuong did this was very creative. Also, I heard today that Kevin Vuong is actually seeking to become a MP in the Conservative Party. He is currently an independent, used to be a Liberal. He was never actually sitting as a Liberal MP since the Liberals kicked him out of their caucus before he was even elected, but he still ended up winning simply because he was the Liberal on the ballot in that riding. Since then, he's been probably one of the most staunchly anti-communist, like MPs. He's actually stood up to anti-Semites in the city of Toronto. He's against the carbon tax. He's against the expansion of MAID. He's actually a very good MP considering he's in one of the reddest districts in the entire country. I'd really like to see him in the Conservative Party. Obviously, he would have to run for a nomination, but I think he'd be a great asset in Toronto. But I thought he just did a really good job here of saying that the Liberal Party should maybe start throwing up leadership posters for Mark Carney and move on from Trudeau.
Mr. Speaker, congratulations to the Liberal government. Congratulations on achieving the highest interest rates in 2 decades, on sustained high food prices not seen since the 80s, and reducing Canadian living standards to almost the lowest levels in 40 years. Mr. Speaker, spread out over 20 years and beyond the next election, Budget 2024 solves nothing. Yes, Mr. Speaker, Canada has come a long way since 2015. Unfortunately, it's in the wrong direction. Given a long list of failures, will the finance minister resign, take the entire cabinet with her, and go paint leadership posters for Mark Carney?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board.
Mr. Speaker, our government is focused on keeping inflation low so that interest rates can come down. We have a fiscally responsible plan, and we will continue to maintain strong economic indicators, a AAA credit rating, the lowest net debt to GDP ratio in the G7, all the while having some.
Can I just say, I hate this kind of stuff. Like, I'm just going to cut it off there. Whenever the economy sucks, the economy is doing bad, we all know the economy is doing bad. And then you get some hacky Liberal minister coming out and say, do you know that we have actually the best net debt to GDP ratio in the world, or whatever, in the G7? I don't care. What? Who cares? Everyone has a terrible financial situation right now in Canada, and we're going to brag about our net debt to GDP ratio. I'm a conservative who's not allergic to deficits. It's not that I want deficits. I'd love to have a balanced budget, if not a surplus. But the Liberals pretending like, hey, we're technically in the long run, in the forecast, we're bringing down our net debt to GDP ratio because we increased taxes. That's why. Debt is not increasing as fast as other countries because we jacked up taxes. So that's where, like, people have to realize, in the Soviet Union, at no point did they have a deficit. Like, they might have, but you get my point. It's a communist government. They controlled everything, so they never had to ask for, they never had to issue bonds to the Russian people. They just took whatever they wanted. They probably had a great debt to GDP ratio. Who cares? At the end of the day, I actually care about the financial health of individuals, not the financial health of the government. The financial health of the government matters, but in terms of the order of importance, it goes families, then it goes like businesses, then it goes government, and then it goes like Justin Trudeau personally. I don't care about our net debt to GDP ratio. I don't care about these stupid metrics about how, if you really twist the numbers, child poverty is down to its lowest levels in history. How is that so when food bank usage is at its highest rates in what you've seen in like 20 years? That's foolish. That's just lying by omission of the metrics that you're using. They're saying, well, more young people have iPhones than ever, and we are using smartphone usage as a sign of not being impoverished. And ergo, look, no kid is impoverished. Yeah, sure, that makes you look good from what the country was like 10 years ago. But when you actually base it on the financial health of the families those kids live in, obviously it's not actually true. But now I do want to move over to even another video of Justin Trudeau going and talking to volunteers, which I just find silly. Justin Trudeau trying to make himself seem like this dynamic leader who's still with it and people are cheering for and love to see. It's all very put on, and I love this video because there's like so many cuts in it to make it look like extra dynamic. Oh, he's entering this room and there's like all these people cheering for him, and we have like 5 different camera angles we keep cutting like back and forth from to emphasize the momentum and the action that is inherent in Justin Trudeau's character.
Our organization runs on volunteers. As you get out there and knock doors and make phone calls and mobilize and bring people together.
Sorry, but that was such a fake setup with the lady standing there by the phone. Like, they're like really playing to the camera, like she's sitting here, kind of like angling in so the camera still sees her, and he's sitting there like leaning over and talking to her. It's not a real setup. Like, obviously political optics exist, but whenever I see the Liberals, because they have so little going for them, I only see the optical tricks to make themselves look good, and none of the actual. I don't see any of the actual like point.
Create communities and groups and movements across the country. We bring together that sense of optimism and hope that'll leave Canadians choosing the kind of country we are, the kind of country.
I'd love to see them filming this at the doors. How many doors they have to have Justin Trudeau go to before there's someone willing to like fake laugh at his jokes on camera. Dude, they probably are in like a Montreal riding at the safest of safe seats in order to get this footage, because it's not hard to find even people who are former Liberal voters who hate Justin Trudeau's guts, who would throw them off his lawn if he actually approached their door. But yeah, these people know they're losing. Justin Trudeau is merely trying to make the loss look good by leaning into all of his really, really progressive instincts, by pushing even bigger programs so that in 10 years he can say, look at how much the Conservatives have devastated our social security, like infrastructure, our benefit structures, our safety nets. And whenever there's ever an economic downturn in the future as a Conservative, he's under Conservatives, he's going to say, well, look how uncompassionate they are because they got rid of whatever program and they're not spending as much as I did on this. Well, a lot of people say, like, well, Justin Trudeau is obviously going to cheat to win. He's not. You can even tell. When the incumbent government looks and sounds like they know they're losing, it's not because they're confident that they're going to win through cheating. Justin Trudeau, unlike what popular opinion thinks in some circles, did not cheat to win in 2021 and 2019. Yes, the CCP interfered in a few ridings, but that's not what won Justin Trudeau those elections or got him the minority government. It was because he was up against someone like Erin O'Toole, who did not drive out the Conservative base to vote for him because he was just a weakling who didn't really offer that much of a difference to Justin Trudeau, because no one was going to come out and campaign with Erin O'Toole and vote for him when he was only really promising to make the country like 10% better. People want things to actually get substantially better, and so people stayed home for O'Toole. People stayed home for Andrew Scheer. Andrew Scheer could have actually been a great leader and prime minister, but I think at the time in 2019, there was a lot of dumb conventional wisdom in the background of the party that Pierre Poilievre has cleared up a lot, which put a lot of focus on focus groups, polling, and expert advisors telling you what you need to say on different issues. So I didn't think that Scheer got to be his own man during that entire election. Because I remember when Andrew Scheer stopped being the leader of the party and he did his first exit interview with Andrew Lawton from True North, immediately natural. He's funny. He's actually quippy in how he talks. He talks like a very orthodox conservative. He talks like somebody who I think a lot of Canadians would have voted for. But during the 2019 election, he talked very stiffly. It felt like he was nervous one of his advisors was going to come over and throttle him for talking about specific issues. It was his advisor saying, don't say you're pro-life. Don't say anything about being pro-life. That's going to alienate people. But by not saying anything on that issue at all, Andrew Scheer ended up hurting himself because the media got to pretend that he's hiding something. Oh, he won't answer the questions. As soon as he just came out and said, I'm pro-life late in the campaign, those questions went away. Because as much as the Liberals and the leftist media likes to pretend it's such a pro-choice country, such a pro-abortion country, that if you even have a slightly pro-life opinion, everyone's going to hate you. More people are pro-life than they let on. When you actually poll people on individual practices, like individual abortion practices, far more people have very reasonable in-the-middle opinions. So nobody's that offended by someone who's pro-life, just as nobody's really that offended by someone who's pro-choice. People are just looking for someone who has very, concretely stated positions. That is what generally wins you elections, actually, is just confidence. Confidence in your positions. O'Toole was the prime example of someone who had no confidence because he kept switching his positions up to election day. Even 10 days before election day, he was making promises that contradicted what he had previously said, and it immediately gave him an untrustworthy vibe, and that's what caused people to stay home. There's people out there who say Erin O'Toole's far right, and they don't know a thing about the guy. They don't know that he's basically a liberal. It's just that he gave you that untrustworthy feel, and ergo, any negative label stuck to him that the Liberals and the NDP threw at him were naturally going to actually stick to him. since everyone has bad vibes about the guy, so you're willing to believe any bad thing you hear about him. That's the thing with Pierre Poilievre. You can't throw mud at the guy and actually make it stick, because the problem with Poilievre for the Liberals and the NDP is he actually tells you what he thinks, and you can't fearmonger about very clear and coherent positions. The Liberals and NDP always rely on the idea that there's this inkling he might do something wrong and he won't tell you about it. But with Poilievre, when he just comes out outright and says, I'm in favor of parental rights. I think immigration's too high. I think we need to reduce taxes, scrap the carbon tax. We need to defund the CBC. You can't fearmonger about that, because you have to just argue that those are bad positions, and they're not bad positions. And so all the Liberals have left is now saying Pierre Poilievre might, attack women's rights. Based on what? Based on what? And which right? You actually have to explain what you're talking about. They don't want to, because by being specific, they actually can be attacked back, so they want to stay as vague as possible. And it's not working, evident by polls like this, where the Conservatives are at 44%. So that should be pretty much it for me today, guys. If you're on Twitter or X, I guess, it'd be great if you went to the description of this video below and went to the Kevin Vuong link. I want people to vote in this poll that's out there on whether or not Kevin Vuong should be added to the Conservative Party caucus. I think you should vote yes. I think he's done a very good job in Parliament. He is like the ideal person you'd want to be an MP. He represents his constituents, votes the way he and his constituents agree is the best way of doing it. He is very responsive to local issues as well as federal issues. And so I would be sad that he wouldn't be rewarded for being the ideal MP in Parliament and not being brought into the Conservative Party. So go vote in that. You can donate to my legal fund in the description of this video below. It's the Gifts and Go link. And then you can also join the TNT Telegram channel, also linked in the description below, so you can get every post from us in chronological order and not have to rely on a big tech algorithm to show you when we have a new video out. Have a good one, everyone.